My name is Natalie Carter. For 6 years, my stepmother controlled every paycheck I earned. She called it financial guidance. My father called it responsibility. I called it trust. Every dollar passed through her. Every account belonged to her. Every question made me look immature. Then one morning, an accountant sent me a spreadsheet. Not by accident, on purpose. At the bottom was a single note. Before you sign anything at the family dinner, open every tab. I thought he was being dramatic. Then I opened a hidden tab labeled NC and discovered someone had been approving transfers using an email address that looked almost identical to mine. The only problem? It wasn't my email. And the money being transferred was mine. I graduated college at 22 with a marketing degree and a job offer waiting for me. I felt proud, excited, ready to start my life. My father hugged me and said, "You've got a bright future ahead." I believed him. I just didn't realize someone else was already planning that future for me. 2 weeks after graduation, my stepmother Denise invited me to coffee. She brought spreadsheets, folders, a notebook full of financial plans. Then she smiled. Most people ruin their finances in their 20s. I laughed nervously. She didn't. Denise called it adult financial training, a temporary system, just until I became more experienced. My paycheck would go into a family-managed account. She'd handle taxes, savings, investments, everything. I wouldn't have to worry about mistakes. At 22, that sounded comforting. I looked at my father, Richard Carter, waiting for him to object. Instead, he nodded immediately. "Your stepmother is excellent with money." Then he smiled. "She's helping you get ahead." When two people you trust tell you something is normal, you stop questioning it. The arrangement started with my first paycheck. Every Friday, Denise transferred spending money to my debit card. Gas, groceries, coffee. Everything came from that amount. If I needed extra money, I had to ask. At first it felt temporary. Then months passed. Nothing changed. One evening, I asked for access to my savings account. Denise looked surprised. "Why?" "Just curious." She laughed softly. "That's exactly how people get themselves into trouble." Then she changed the subject. "I never got the password." That should have bothered me more than it did. My stepsister Lauren loved talking about success. New handbags, weekend trips, luxury apartments, designer furniture. She seemed to level up every year. Whenever I asked how she afforded it, Denise always answered first. "Lauren works hard." Then she'd remind me not to compare myself to anyone, especially Lauren. The first time Denise humiliated me publicly, I laughed along. We were having dinner with relatives. Someone asked how work was going. Before I could answer, Denise said, "Natalie makes good money." Then she smiled. "Good thing somebody manages it for her." The table laughed. Even my aunt. Even Lauren. At 24, I earned a major promotion. I was thrilled. The raise was substantial. For the first time, I thought maybe I could move into my own apartment. Then Denise reviewed the numbers and shook her head. "You're not financially ready." Not ready. Despite earning more than ever, despite working 60-hour weeks, despite being an adult. Something about that felt wrong. A few months later, the entire family went out to celebrate Lauren's birthday. Expensive restaurant, private room, dozens of guests. The bill had to be enormous. A week later, while reviewing a debit card notification, I noticed something strange. One charge matched the exact amount of that dinner. The charge came from an account connected to me. Not Denise, not Lauren, me. When I asked Denise about it, she smiled calmly. "It's all part of the family budget." Then she walked away. And for the first time in 6 years, I started wondering where my money was actually going. After the restaurant charge, I started paying attention, not aggressively, just little things. Whenever I asked Denise how much I had saved, she gave vague answers. "You're doing fine. Your future looks good. Trust the process." But she never gave actual numbers. And somehow, I stopped asking. That was exactly what she wanted. At 25, my old car finally gave up. The repair estimate was almost $7,000. I assumed I'd use some of my savings. After all, I'd been working for years. Instead, Denise frowned. "We can't afford that right now?" I stared at her. "We?" That answer didn't make sense. 3 weeks later, Lauren arrived at Sunday dinner driving a brand new SUV. Everyone admired it. Dad complimented it. Denise looked proud. When I asked how Lauren afforded it, she shrugged. "Good planning." The timing felt strange. Very strange. I tried apartment hunting again. Nothing extravagant. Just a small place near work. When Denise saw my calculations, she shook her head. "You're still not financially independent?" I laughed. Actually laughed. Because I was paying my own bills, working full-time, covering my own expenses. Yet somehow I still wasn't independent. That year I expected a sizable tax refund. It never arrived. When I asked about it, Denise answered immediately. It was moved into savings. Simple, confident, final. At the time, I accepted the explanation. Years later, I would wish I'd demanded proof. Lauren's lifestyle kept improving. New vacations, new furniture, weekend shopping trips. Every time someone asked how she managed it, Denise used the same phrase. Family support. At the time, I assumed she meant emotional support. I was very wrong. Around this time, I occasionally heard Denise mention her accountant, Evan Brooks. Apparently, he'd managed family finances for years. I never met him, never spoke to him, never even saw his face. But Denise trusted him completely. And that detail would matter later. A lot later. By 27, I wanted something simple. A condo. Nothing luxurious. Just mine. I spent weeks researching, budgeting, planning. Then Denise reviewed my finances and rejected the idea immediately. "You're nowhere near ready." That sentence crushed me, because according to her, I had spent 5 years saving, yet somehow I still had nothing. That night I finally challenged her. "How much money do I actually have?" Denise looked irritated, then offended, then disappointed. An impressive sequence. "Natalie, after everything I've done for you?" There it was. The guilt, the manipulation, the question never got answered. 3 months later, everything changed. I was sitting at work when an email notification appeared. Sender: Evan Brooks. Subject: Q3 Household Allocation Review. At first I assumed it was meant for Denise. Then I noticed something strange. The email wasn't asking me to forward it, wasn't asking me to ignore it. Instead, there was a note at the bottom. Just one sentence. "Before you attend the family planning dinner next week, review every tab." I stared at the screen. Family planning dinner? I hadn't even been invited yet. And suddenly, for the first time, I realized somebody else had started asking questions too. I stared at Evan's email for almost 10 minutes before opening the spreadsheet. At first, it looked harmless. Budgets, expenses, quarterly reviews, exactly what you'd expect from an accountant. Then I noticed several hidden tabs. Someone had intentionally concealed them. My pulse quickened. Because normal budgets don't need secrets. One hidden tab was labeled NC, my initials. Natalie Carter. I clicked it. Rows of numbers filled the screen. Deposits, transfers, withdrawals. Every paycheck I'd earned for years was listed there, and the amounts matched perfectly. This wasn't a family budget. This was my money. Then I saw a category called Family Support Allocation. At first I didn't understand. Then I followed the transactions, rent payments, vacation expenses, car installments, furniture purchases, all assigned to Lauren. My stomach dropped. because those payments weren't coming from Denise. They were coming from me. One entry stood out. $8,200, the exact amount Lauren paid for her apartment deposit 3 years earlier. I remembered that year. The year Denise told me I couldn't afford my own place. The year she said my savings needed more time. Apparently, my money had found somewhere else to go. I searched for my emergency savings, the account Denise always talked about, the account supposedly protecting my future. Eventually, I found it. Balance, $3,417. I stared at the screen. 6 years of work, 6 years of raises, 6 years of trust. And that was all that remained. I felt sick. Then I found my annual performance bonus, a bonus I'd earned after landing the biggest client in company history. I remembered being proud, excited, hopeful. According to the spreadsheet, the money lasted 4 days. Then it paid Lauren's apartment deposit. I couldn't breathe. Remember the refund Denise said went into savings? I found that too. Transferred out within 48 hours. Destination, household credit obligations. Translation? Denise's credit cards. For years she had been paying her debt with my money and calling it financial management. Then I reached a section labeled Income Classification beneath Lauren's name, Dependent Support Recipient. Beneath Denise's name, Household Administrator. Beneath mine, Primary Income Source. I read it 3 times, because I wanted to believe I misunderstood. I hadn't. Then something unexpected appeared. Monthly summary reports. Sent to my father. I opened several. The information was vague. Painfully vague. No transaction details, no ledgers, no withdrawals, just summaries. Dad thought investment accounts existed. Dad thought savings were growing. Dad had been weak. But for the first time, I realized he might not have known everything. Then I found the approval records. Every major transfer required authorization. Every single one. And every approval came from an email address that looked exactly like mine. At first glance, nobody would notice the difference. I almost didn't. Then I saw it. One number. Just one. That was all it took. For 6 years, someone had been approving transfers through an address designed to look like mine, but it wasn't mine. I opened the account recovery information, then froze, because the recovery phone number belonged to Denise. I checked again. Same number, same backup contact. Same account. And suddenly, everything made sense. This wasn't bad money management. It wasn't family support. It wasn't a misunderstanding. For 6 years, someone had been pretending to be me. And I finally had proof. I didn't sleep that night. By morning, I had reviewed every hidden tab 3 times. Around 9 o'clock, my phone rang. Unknown number. This time, I answered. Natalie? The voice was calm, professional. Evan Brooks. The accountant, the man who sent the spreadsheet. My first question was simple. Did you send this by mistake? Silence. Then Evan answered. No. I sat up straight. No? I sent it because you deserve to know. My heart started pounding, because suddenly this wasn't an accounting error. This was a warning. Then Evan told me something strange. Denise had scheduled a family financial planning dinner for the following week. Printed documents were already prepared. Several approvals were waiting. My stomach tightened, because I hadn't been invited yet, which meant Denise planned to invite me after everything was ready. Just like always. Evan hesitated, then said, "There's something else." The words, nobody wants to hear. He emailed another file. I opened it immediately. Business projections, revenue estimates, store layouts, Lauren's dream boutique. Then I saw my name. And froze. There it was. Buried halfway through the financing package. Future co-guarantor, Natalie Carter. I stared at the screen. I had never seen these documents, never discussed them, never approved them, yet somehow, I was already part of the plan, without my knowledge. without my permission. The deeper I looked, the worse it became. Lauren had already selected a location, negotiated lease terms, met with lenders. Everyone was acting as if financing was guaranteed. One note caught my attention. Family assets provide strong backing. Family assets, meaning me. For the next 2 weeks, I became obsessed. Bank records, payroll statements, tax documents, old emails, everything. I downloaded copies, made backups, created folders. For 6 years, Denise controlled information. Now information was controlling her, and she didn't know it yet. One discovery made me physically ill. The fake email account had existed for almost 6 years, created only weeks after I started working. Recovery number, Denise's cell phone. Recovery address, Denise's secondary email. The entire system was designed from the beginning. This wasn't opportunistic, it was planned. 3 days later, the invitation finally arrived. Exactly as Evan predicted. Family financial planning dinner. Attendance required. I laughed when I read those words. Required. For years, I would have panicked. This time, I smiled. Because for the first time in my life, I knew more than Denise did. If someone lied to you for years and thought you'd never find out, would you confront them immediately or gather more proof first? Comment: more proof. The dinner took place at my parents' house. Everyone was already seated when I arrived. Dad, Denise, Lauren. A stack of documents sat on the table, waiting. Then Denise smiled, the same smile she'd used for years. Natalie, we just need a few signatures. I opened my laptop instead. Denise's smile disappeared, and for the first time in 6 years, she looked nervous. The dining room was silent. Dad sat at one end of the table. Lauren sat beside Denise. A stack of documents waited in front of me. Denise pushed them closer. Just review these and sign. Instead, I opened my laptop, then rotated the screen toward everyone and opened the spreadsheet. Denise immediately stopped smiling. What's this? Dad asked. I clicked the tab labeled NC. Rows of transactions filled the screen. My paychecks, my bonuses, my tax refunds, everything. Denise leaned forward. Natalie, you're confused. I ignored her. Then opened the family support section. Lauren's face turned white. One by one, I read them aloud. Apartment deposit, car payments, vacation expenses, furniture purchases, boutique planning costs. Every line connected back to my income. Dad stared at the screen, then looked at Lauren, then at Denise. Nobody spoke. Because the numbers were speaking loudly enough. Denise suddenly stood. This information is confidential. Then she reached for my laptop. I pulled it back and clicked another button. A Zoom window opened. Evan Brooks appeared on screen. The accountant. The room froze, especially Denise. Dad looked confused. Evan? Evan nodded, then said, I reviewed these records for years. Denise interrupted. You had no right. Evan cut her off. No, Denise. Silence. Then he added, I warned you repeatedly. Lauren lowered her eyes, because this wasn't a surprise to her. Not entirely. I opened the approval records, then displayed the fake email address. Only one number separated it from mine. Dad leaned forward, slowly, then looked at the recovery information, Denise's phone number, Denise's email, Denise's account. His face changed immediately. For the first time all evening, he understood. Then I opened the business financing file. Lauren whispered, Mom. Too late. Dad was already reading. Future co-guarantor, Natalie Carter. Credit support, Natalie Carter. Income verification, Natalie Carter. I never signed anything, never approved anything. Yet my financial history was being used to build Lauren's future. Everything unraveled quickly after that. I had already contacted the bank, the payroll department, a tax specialist, and an attorney. Account reviews began immediately. Authorization privileges were suspended. Transfer requests were frozen. Then another call came. Lauren's boutique financing was denied. Without my income backing it, the numbers no longer worked. Dad called me 2 days later. Alone. For the first time in years. He apologized. Genuinely. Not for everything, but for enough. I listened, then told him something he wasn't expecting. I forgive you. He sounded relieved. Then I continued. But things are still changing. Because forgiveness and access are not the same thing. Within 6 months, I had my own accounts. My own savings. My own investments. My own apartment. For the first time since graduating college, every dollar I earned belonged to me. Denise called repeatedly. I never answered. Lauren tried reaching out too. I ignored that as well. Some lessons arrive late, but they still matter. Denise spent 6 years telling me she was teaching me financial responsibility. In the end, I learned a very different lesson. Never hand your freedom to someone who calls control love.